ladies and gentlemen. I'm Kristine with Young PR Pros, and I'm here with the panelists of the Future of PR panel that we had on the last day of the CPRS Conversations Conference 2013. So I'm here with Dan Tisch, Valin, Stephanie Lawrence, Vince Power, and the moderator, who was Bruce MacLellan. So welcome, everyone. So my first question for you guys is, what are some of the big changes that we're seeing in public relations?
Well, I think, as we talked about in the session, I think one gigantic change is the shift in communication power from organizations to audiences, right? So our audiences have never been more empowered. Anybody can make or break a corporate reputation or brand with one tweet, right? Or one video of a customer service officer doing something improper, right? And so with consumers being more empowered, the stakes change. And the other big change is that most of a company's valuation now is based on its reputation. And so that's created an incredible opportunity, but also an incredible challenge for public relations.
And then another change that's occurring is the power of all corporations, any organization, to become its own publisher, its own content generator. And that is opening up a fantastic opportunity for public relations people to broaden their scope of work. So we're no longer out talking to the community or the media or the investor or those audiences that we've always helped to interact with on behalf of the organization. Now we're producing content and looking at the different channels we can use to distribute that and then build audience followers for each of the channels that we have.
The next question I had, I can't remember who was it. Someone who during the panel said that they can never plan their day, and I thought, Vince, I thought that was a really good analogy. And I thought that was a fun way to kind of introduce some of the skills that young PR professionals need. So think of the audience of the podcast today. These are young professionals entering their career. And as you can say, you don't plan your day. So what are some of the skills that young professionals need for this good future of public relations?
Well, I think obviously time management skills I think are going to be very important. When I refer to the fact that it's hard to plan your day, it's because people other than yourself often determine what your priorities are going to be that day. And you can come in for a day or a week and expect to have a list of things that you want to accomplish. And if your publics have other priorities, those are going to fall by the wayside. So I think what I would suggest to young professionals entering the profession is to be ready to adapt. You know, to be ready to say there are going to be tasks that I'm going to have to get done, that no matter what happens, I have to get those done. So don't build too much into a day. Allow yourself some flexibility to react to what your publics or your stakeholders would rather have you do that day.
The other thing you're seeing is we've not run away from the fundamental skills. You still need to be a good writer. It starts with that, and some of the work that we've done at CPRS to try to give students a leg up to get a job is the Public Relations Knowledge Exam. And we went to employer groups such as Danielle's on the Council of PR Firm and said, would you work with us to design an examination that will give you confidence in hiring students that are ready after graduation? Writing comes up really quickly. Good judgment and use of ethics, and they don't really know this until they've hired them. So I think the issue for them in joining us with CPRS to design this is they had a high rate of what they call false hire after 6 months. They had to let them go because they weren't ready for the workplace. The third element was teamwork. So, and they found that, you know, fine, you do team projects in school, but how's the workload being distributed? And what was your role in it? So they found them, you know, the students were a little bit lacking in that. So those are skills you need to enter the workplace. The other thing, as Vince says, is you'll be multitasking all the time. And I think somebody said, I forget, it was another panel another time, that we've actually evolved into a different species because of our ability to listen to music, do tweeting at the same time as we're writing a paper or doing our, you know, you're doing your reviews of what you learned that day. We've actually evolved our brain into being very good multitaskers. My own experience as I moved up in my career, my life was a series of 15-minute rolling windows where I was always tossing a ball in the air, working on something, and I was done 15 minutes later, toss it up in the air, and wait for it to come down or pick up the next ball. It was always like a cycle, a cycle, a cycle. And as Vince said, then somebody interrupted it, said, forget your plans, you're doing that now. So adaptability for sure.
And I would build on that. What came to mind first for me was writing as well. So those core skills will never go away. And some of the tools that I think younger people need and that we all need, social media, those are just tools, but building on our core skills. Something that we look for in the charity sector is fit with organization. So I have a great example of a woman who's on our team we hired about 2 years ago who is fantastic, and she showed up to her interview with her bike helmet. She had biked there. So in a corporate world, you might not be able to bike there and show up looking presentable, and for somewhere like the Heart and Stroke Foundation, I thought, oh, she had me at her bike helmet. She's living our mission.
Well, that actually shows something very important, right? And that's you can they were themselves. You know, authenticity is really important, and the ability to very quickly understand an organization, its values, its culture, and to see if you fit authentically within that. I think is very important.
And just on that note about showing up at an interview, I like that story. I once had a fellow show up with a six-pack of beer, and he had created six-pack bottles, but with customized labels for Environics, talking about why he would be a great addition to our team. And what that told me was he was creative, and he also knew that we had a culture where we, like to work hard but also have fun. And we actually didn't hire him right away, but we were impressed enough that we kept track of him and hired him about a year later.
Another thing I'd just like to mention, because I did hire a lot of younger people in government where I work, and I developed a model of knowing whether I had a good employee or whether something was wrong and we needed to do an intervention. So my model was over a 9-month period. The person would normally graduate from, over 3 stages in the 3-month chunks, right? In the first 3 months, and that's a maximum. Some would jump faster than others. But in the first 3 months, I was looking for evidence they were fitting in, trying to fit in to the environment, the workplace. Check. If that wasn't happening, we'd have a word with the manager, my director, say, what's happening with Charlene over there? Could you, go talk and find out what's wrong? Is it shy? Is she shy? What's happening? Second one was you watch for evidence that they are actually taking charge of something and contributing, offering suggestions in the workplace, in their particular unit. That's happening, that's good within the second trimester. In the third, you want to see evidence that they're taking leadership with something. Piece of work, it's yours, run with it. That, for me, told me is a natural progression, this employee's fitting in. And so I watch for those cues.
So the next question I have is very fitting with the panel you guys did today, which is all about the future of PR. And public relations and communications still has a little bit of a negative stereotype to it. It's been much better in the past, at least the past decade. We're not seen as spin doctors anymore, but there's still a little bit of a negative stereotype. So what are some of the advice for young professionals, or even just advice for professionals all across our industry, to try to help make our industry take it to the next level, make it that much better, and completely get rid of any sort of negative stereotype out there?
Well, I think a big part of it, and this came up in the session today too, is I think we have to change the way we define what we do. Too often we talk about our services. We're the ones who manage media relations, for example, right? Or stakeholder relations or whatever. I think we have to start talking more about the value we provide, right? As I said earlier, I mean, if 80% of a typical organization's value comes from its reputation, and we're the ones who look after reputation, all of a sudden the CEO starts to listen. So I think business literacy and public policy literacy and consumer literacy are 3 fundamentals that people, I think, have to have at early stages in the profession. As people move to more senior levels, this comes back to what we talked about in the interview that we did together about the Melbourne mandate. Our argument is that public relations has to start talking about leading the definition of the character and values of an organization, building cultures of listening and engagement, and helping the organization understand and execute its responsibility to society.
I think young PR professionals can look upon their roles as being the communicators of the company's core values, of the company's mission and vision, and what it stands for. That's a big responsibility. And to ensure that everything that they do and everything that the company puts out, or the organization puts out as far as messaging goes, reflects the values that the organization has. And that's an important job. And if they can do that and at the same time be listening, listening for the organization as to what people are saying and what is important to the stakeholders of that organization, that's a very important role that shouldn't be diminished.
The other thing we can do to counter this negative perception, because it's out there, is every time we see evidence of bad practice or unethical conduct, is call them out. Call them out, because we do allow the 90% that operate outside of professional bodies to sort of dictate our image, right? So we've got to call them out like almost systematically every time we see something. Our professional leaders need to call that out. That's not acceptable behavior. That's not acceptable tactic. That's poorly executed. We've got to be able to stand up and critique those that are potentially our members, but bring them to sort of shake them up a little bit, because they are creating a very bad image. And there are people in segments of the industry. I'll use a classic example. I'm a publicist for an entertainment. I'm promoting a movie or I'm promoting a singer, and they do all kinds of abusive things or break the law or lie about their artist or you name it, and they're called PR people. You've got to call out that kind of behavior. And maybe they're not true PR professionals, but they're occupying a ground that uses the same communication channels we're using. So it's a problem.
I would encourage young people to ask their employer what is their approach to their social responsibility and their commitment to the profession. Is their organization involved in professional associations? I was noting at the CPRS conference who was here and who wasn't. And I was talking to the executive director of CPRS about the kind of participation rates we see from certain companies. I would hope young people ask those questions of their employers. What are you doing to advance this profession in terms of our standards and our education and our support for each other as colleagues?
Well, that's great. Thank you, everyone, for sitting down with me.